Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's virtual meetup. On today's agenda, we will discuss the new address data management solution. We're recording this meetup and we are posting the recording to YouTube. And later on, we'll have several sections for questions, and we can do Q&A. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a Q&A panel, so you can open that up, submit a question to us, and we'll answer it. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Scott and Chris and get us started.
All right, thanks a lot, Matt, and thank you all for joining us in our first meetup for 2022. Today, we're going to talk about the new and improved address data management solution and all of the enhancements that came in the last release of 2021. So my name's Scott Ottman. I lead the Arcgis Solutions group here at Esri, and joining me is Chris Fox, who's the product owner for our address data management solutions. And we want to give you an overview of the new address data management solution and all of the capabilities that are available in it. For those that are new to Arcgis Solutions, I just want to start with a little bit of context. So Arcgis includes a whole series of solutions that align with your business needs, transform your use of ArcGIS, and help you maximize the investment you're making in location-based data and technology. These industry-specific configurations are designed to really help you improve operations, provide new insight, and even enhance services you deliver to internal and external stakeholders. And one of the great things about ArcGIS Solutions is they come with the ArcGIS software, and they're fully supported. So there's no additional cost for the solutions we're going to show you today or any of the solutions that are available with ArcGIS. It just requires your ArcGIS software subscription and licensing. So today we're going to talk about the address data management solution. If you're on this meetup, you're probably pretty familiar with the importance of addresses in local government and state government and even government functions in general. And I just want to set a little bit of context before we spend the bulk of our time just showing you the capabilities that are available in the solution. So typically, addresses are accumulated from plats, commercial developments, and building permits, and they are used to assign a number to a structure. And they include, the name of a street or a town, and are used for a whole variety of purposes. Assigning addresses is typically an essential act of government, often local governments, and it's critical to the provision of all kinds of efficient services and cost-effective commerce in a community. And so while many address authorities have a central database of their addresses, the location of those addresses, though, really eludes people in many cases. And ensuring that your address repository supports the diverse information needs we have in local government, whether that's 911 or permitting or water and sewer billing or even assessment and taxation, it's critical that you support those diverse needs and continuously evolve the quality of your address information as you begin to use that information. So every community will face challenges maintaining that high quality address information, but we really feel that progressive communities use location to organize their address repository and streamline the data management workflows in your community. And today we're going to talk about the address data management solution. This solution delivers a set of capabilities that do a couple key things. It helps you maintain that authoritative address repository, continuously improve the quality of that data as you use it inside and outside your organization, and help you share that authoritative information with those internal stakeholders and external stakeholders as well. So when we talk about addresses, we're really going to talk about kind of two key personas. We're going to focus today's meetup really on the left-hand side of this slide, the local government context. And typically, as I mentioned, the local governments are responsible for developing these address repositories, and they use them in a whole variety of key business needs or services that they deliver in the community. But there are countless states and regions and other larger governing bodies that are actually aggregating address information and using it for a whole variety of key needs like next-gen 911, environmental permitting, voter registration, and even health and human services. And the need for those addresses became very apparent during the COVID pandemic. So as we started to develop and evolve the address data management solution, we've released several different versions of the solution, and this version we're going to show you today really is a culmination of a lot of feedback we got from the community. And current and accurate address information is an essential requirement for state and local governments. And as we spoke with different local governments, we found a few key challenges really emerged. The first is developing that central repository that supports diverse information needs is really challenging. Typically what we find is that each of those business systems I mentioned earlier, 911, assessment and taxation or water and sewer billing have their own land system and their own idea of addresses that are relevant to the services they deliver. And many times there's conflicts or incompleteness in those systems. And so developing that central repository is really critical for not only needs in your community, but also a lot of the next gen 911 needs that require that data to be aggregated and shared more broadly. It's important that we continuously improve this data, whether that's adding additional content for things like units and suites that may not exist in your property information, or even more detailed information that's coming from development. It's really critical this data constantly improve and be validated throughout key workflows. And then ultimately, we want to help you take that address repository and syndicate it with a whole bunch of third-party systems. And that's a really critical aspect. So address data management is really targeted on two kind of key value propositions. The first is you're going to see that it really streamlines the data management workflows. How do I get record information from new plats, new commercial developments into my address repository as quickly as possible? And then once I have that information in ArcGIS and organized in a logical way, how do I continuously improve the quality of that data in my organization and then ultimately share it with key stakeholders? Now, for those of you that are familiar with our addressing solutions, we historically delivered these capabilities in two different solutions. We had the data management solution in one, and we had then address field operations, which really extended those workflows out into the field so you could validate address information and continuously improve it. What you'll see in the latest release of address data management is it's a comprehensive system now to actually manage your address information, and all of the capabilities are delivered in a single ArcGIS solution. Now, you can still take advantage of unique capabilities like just the data management workflows or perhaps the addressing site for your address repository, but know that they're designed to work together as a comprehensive system. So you'll see that these maps and apps are designed to really take into account the needs of local governments who need to manage that address authority. And that's typically handled by your planning department, maybe your dispatch center, or even your GIS department who's doing it on behalf of those other agencies. And that authoritative address information, and today you'll see things like site addresses, postal addresses, road center lines, and even hear about things like master street names and geopolitical areas, are used as authoritative reference information that's loaded into the system and used in the address solution. We then have a real focused configuration of Arcgis Pro that's designed for those mapping technicians or GIS analysts who need to manage the day-to-day address repository and the updates that go along with it. How do I get new subdivisions into the system, new commercial developments, or even new addresses that are assigned to permits when development occurs? In some cases, you may extend those workflows now and begin to actually incorporate and share your information with internal and external stakeholders. So we have a ArcGIS hub site that you can use to kind of be the foundation for that syndication. You'll see that there's a new address request form that's designed to allow internal and external stakeholders to request a new address or perhaps submit an error in an existing address. And then that information flows into addressing staff who can then assign it to field staff to go out and do an independent validation and even collect new addresses while they're there. And so, as I mentioned, this is all designed to work together as a comprehensive system, but you can pick and choose the capabilities that are relevant for you. So a few minutes ago, I mentioned some of the key layers that are included in the addressing solution. And it's difficult to have a conversation about addressing without talking about a lot of the guidelines we deal with here, at least domestically. And the thing I'll say is that the work we've done with the addressing solutions really are physical implementations of many of those guidelines that you're familiar with. And they're really designed to help you organize address information, site addresses, along with their associated mailing addresses, road center lines, and other related information in a physical implementation of ArcGIS, a geodatabase in this case. And those layers are designed really to help you with the right domains and the right attributes to manage that information in an effective way. When you begin to dig into the layers provided with this solution, you'll see that they're physical implementations of a lot of the guidelines we have here in the United States. The NG 911, Next Gen 911 guidelines have all been incorporated. and even many of the US Postal Service guidelines that are used for things like prefix and suffixes, and a lot of the content in the mailing address table is all coming right from the USPS. And so have confidence knowing that those best practices and those guidelines just come with the solution. And it's fully documented, so you can explore that content and begin to think about how you might need to extend it to meet specific needs in your organization or system requirements that you have in your organization. So with that context in mind, what I'd like to do now is just turn it over to Chris and really spend the bulk of our time today just showing you the address data management solution and all the key capabilities. So Chris, I'll go ahead and stop sharing and let you take it from here.
Great, thanks, Scott. So the first information product I want to start with today is the Arcgis Pro Project, the Address Data Management Pro Project that comes when you deploy the solution. When you download the zip that comes with the solution, included will be the Arcgis Pro Project. There will be 2 file geodatabases, a sample file geodatabase that I'm going to demonstrate today and that you can use to demonstrate out the workflows, and then a schema file geodatabase that when you ultimately implement the solution, you can load your address information into the layers provided and then begin to configure it to meet your needs. We also deliver an Arcgis Pro Task, and this task is going to walk you through the key workflows of the address data management solution. Many of these workflows are going to be familiar if you've seen our previous version of the address data management solution, but I am going to show several new and key enhancements that have come from user requirements that we've received that simplify some of the editing workflows, enhance some of the things that you're doing, and also add some new validation checks that weren't previously included. So one of the first things that you might need to do, for example, if you want to create new addresses for a new subdivision that's being placed, is add a new road. So if we use the add new roads task, the first step in that task is to update the master road name table. And the master road name table is a unique list of all the valid road names that exist in my address repository. And this helps to ensure consistency and accuracy of the information that I'm inputting for my road center lines and my site address points. So in this case, it's a new road, it's a new road name. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom of the master road name table and I'm going to add a new value. So in this case, we're going to add a new road called West Oak and then Street. And you can see we've separated the individual elements of the road name into unique fields. This is based on many standards that we've seen, including NENA. And we also provide domains that limit the values that you can provide based on common standards. So I've entered the individual components, and we also have a full road name here. When I commit that edit, what's going to happen is an attribute rule is going to fire, and it's going to calculate the full road name for me by concatenating the individual components of the road name into a single field. If I update individual elements of this, the master road name table, it will update and calculate that new full road name, always ensuring integrity in my data. I'm also going to go ahead and provide a municipality here. So in this case, this road is going to be in Naperville. And this is going to be a pending road. So I'll apply those edits. And now I'll go to my next step. So now I'm going to construct the new road. Let me go ahead and save my edits to the master road name table. When adding new road names, typically what you're going to have on your road name is the left and right from and to address values. And this is going to help in the placement of new address points. And we have that in our data model as well. But when we construct a new road, what we often do, or what we would want to occur, is when we intersect that road, we want to split that intersecting road. And we also need to prorate the address ranges before and after the split. And the attribute rules and the construction tools that we provide in the solution do that automatically for me. So I'm going to construct a new local road. I'm going to snap to North Mill Street here, and I'm going to draw that new road. And when I finish that sketch, what it's going to do is it's going to construct that new feature, and at the same time, it's going to split that road and update the range before and after the split. So let me go ahead and select the two new roads on North Mill Street. And now we can see prior to the split, it begins at the same left from of 1001 and 1000. And now it goes to 1075 and 1074. And then the new road picks up at 177 or 1077 to 1099. And you can see the same on the right from and right to. And that was all based on the previous range of the road and the distance along where the split occurred to do that calculation. I can always go in and override these values if they're not accurate or don't reflect what should actually exist for those roadways. But this gives me a nice starting point and simplifies the editing workflow quite a bit. So for my new road, I'm going to select that road, and I'm going to give it some new address ranges. You can see it also calculated a new centerline ID, a unique ID for me for that roadway. And every new feature that I create is going to get a new unique ID. So this road will say left from is 101 to 299. And we'll say right from is 100 to 298. And the full road name, we're going to enter in the value here. And let's say, for example, I accidentally input West Oak Road. When I hit apply, I'm going to get an error. And this is a constraint rule that I've written for the road center lines that ensures that the full road name must match a value that exists in the master road name table. So this is ensuring the integrity of the data and I don't introduce any typos as I'm trying to apply the road name to the feature. So you can also see that it's saying that it found a partial match. So it's giving me some help to indicate there's actually a West Oak Street in Naperville, but not a West Oak Road. So it was just a typo on my part. So I'm going to fix that. And when I do that and hit apply, it accepts that edit. Another new attribute rule that we included out of the box is we're automatically intersecting a geopolitical areas layer that's delivered with the solution to pull the municipality on the left and right side that the road falls within. In this case, the road falls completely within Naperville, both on the left and right side. So it updated those values automatically for me. If it traversed a boundary and had different municipality on the left and right side, it would calculate that automatically and pull those values into the new road as well. The next task talks about updating road characteristics. So I provided some of those attributes in the previous example. I updated the attributes of that new road. And then finally, I can also add road alias information to that road. So in this example, we're using a related table. I can add a new record to the related tables to store an alias name associated with that roadway. So this could be a historical name or a vanity name. I can have multiple alias names associated with the same road name. And so this is how we're managing it in the data model. Okay, I'm going to save my edits and I'm going to finish that task. Now I'm ready to start adding some new site address points. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to enter the add site addresses task. So here's a new feature that we added in the recent update. We've added an additional construction tool to construct site addresses. Using this site address sketch tool, there's a couple different ways I can sketch new site addresses. First, I'm going to show the 2-point line construction where I'm placing a single site address point off of a road. The way it works is I select the construction tool, I snap to the road that I want to create the address for, and then I click in the center of a parcel, on a building footprint, etc., wherever I want to place that site address point. And when I click that sketch, it's going to create a new site address point for me. I can repeat that for these other buildings. And I'll go ahead and create a couple both on the left and right side of the road. So now I've constructed 4 site address points, and you can see that they've gotten address numbers. And the address number is determined based on the distance along the roadway where I clicked the first point. This is often could be the driveway location or the curb cut, and the address range of the road. It also determined whether I was placing the site address on the right or the left side, and determined whether it was a odd or even address number based on the parity of the roadway. So I constructed those 4 site addresses relatively quickly. I could always go in and update these address numbers if they don't actually reflect accurately what they should. But this is a quick way to generate some site addresses off of the road. Another thing I can do with this sketch tool is I can create multiple site addresses in a single edit operation. And this would be common, for example, if I was placing many site addresses in a new subdivision. So in this example, I'm going to update my increment value. And this is the value that I want to increment the address number for every click or for every site address that I place. I'm going to select the construction tool. And so first step is to click on the road here on Burning Tree Lane. And then I'm going to click on every building footprint. I'm going to construct all those site addresses. I'll just double click to finish. And it'll create all those site addresses. It'll give them address numbers based on the range of the road and the first click location. And then it will increment every site address by 4. So when the labeling refreshes here, you can see it started at 613 and it increments by 4 for every site address point. So a quick way to construct many site addresses in a single edit operation. Another common way you might construct site addresses, for example, for a multi-unit building, condominium, etc., is we might want to batch create those addresses with a single operation. And in this case, I'm going to use these construction tools to construct multiple site addresses offset a given distance from the roadway. So in this case, I'm going to create 5, or I'm going to offset by 100 feet. I'm going to construct 5 site addresses, and I'm not going to increment because they're all going to have the same address number, but they're going to be different units. So in this case, I'm going to, again, snap to the roadway and click. And it's going to construct 5 site address points, all stacked on top of each other, all with the same address number. Now, as this stands right now, this would fail my validation because my validation rules are configured when I show you later to find duplicate addresses. So site addresses that have the same full address. And in this case, all of my site addresses have the same address number and road. But we can make these unique by populating some additional metadata or information about the site address by providing a unit type and unit number. So in this case, for example, let's say that this is an apartment complex, and these are all in apartment A1, and they're all on floor 1. When I hit apply, you can see the full address was updated to include those alternate unit types and unit numbers. And now I can uniquely identify individual addresses by giving them, for example, unique unit numbers. So this is unit 101. This will be unit 102, for example. And I could continue that for each of my site address points to make them unique, to give them a unique full address. So they validate, they pass my validation and give me a unique location. Here we talked about updating site addresses. So these are all the site addresses that I created in my construction. So I can update individual information about these addresses. Another thing to note, again, is we're also pulling the municipality that the site address intersects. So in this case, on the west side of North Mill Street, it's showing up as Naperville. But on the right side, or on the east side of North Mill Street, it's showing up as Lisle. We can move these site addresses. So in the tools where I specifically place the site address, the location is probably pretty accurate. But in this tool where I offset from the roadway, I might want to move them around slightly. And I'm just using the out-of-the-box tool to move these site addresses. So for these apartment complex and units, I might want to place them more precisely on their location within the building. For each of our site addresses, we're also automatically going to create a new postal address. And the postal address will match the full address of the site address, as well as the municipality that it falls within. But of course, as you know, the postal city might differ from the legal city, the municipality that the site address falls within. So these could also be updated as well. In addition, you might have multiple mailing addresses associated with the same site address. For example, if you're managing who is the owner and who's the occupant of the location, the owner might reside in a different location than the actual occupant. And finally, with each of our site addresses, we can also add one or more building entrances. And this is really useful in, especially for example, 911 purposes, where you might have units, multiple units in a large building, and you might have multiple ways to enter that building or multiple driveway entrances to that particular site address. In this particular case, I have off of West Oak Street, I have this address that has a driveway off of North Mill Street. So I'm going to construct a new driveway entrance. I'm going to place that off of North Mill Street. And then I'm going to select the related site address. I'm going to right click and say add selected to relationship. So now this 162 West Oak Street has the original point along the roadway that that site address was constructed from. This again could be the curb cut or a driveway location. This is where the address number was determined off of. I have the related driveway entrance or one or more related entrance points, and I have the one or more related postal addresses associated with it. So that's constructing site addresses. Another workflow that might happen, especially for example, if you're adding a new proposed development, maybe through the process that it's determined that the road name has been changed. You've already entered the information, for example, for West Oak Street, but we can use the tools in the data management solution to easily update that information. So let's say instead of West Oak Street, it's actually West Elm Street. So in my master road name table, I'm going to change this to Elm, and it updates the full address. Then I'm going to select the road segments that I want to update and change it from West Oak Street to West Elm Street. And hit apply. And what that's going to do is, again, it's going to validate that it falls within the master road name table. And it's also going to find the related site address points and update their road name from Oak Street to Elm Street. It's also going to update the postal addresses associated with it to be West Elm Street. And this will all happen until I mark these site addresses as current. So when I move them from pending to current, that means they've been officially accepted and I'm keeping them as is. And we don't want to make changes to them outside of the planning or the pending phase. We provide some tools to automate some workflows. So this was an enhancement that we received from our user community. In some cases, you might have a roadway that crosses a municipal boundary and it isn't split at that location. And rather than constructing a new road and splitting that, we provide a construction tool that allows you to trace along that municipal boundary and split any road that it intersects at that location. And it will also prorate the address ranges on that road, similar to when I constructed this new roadway. We provide tools to flip the road direction and the left and right address ranges, or the parity. So you can see in this solution, the direction of the road is really critical. It tells us what is the left and right side. It also tells us what is left from and left to. In some cases, that data might be inaccurate or the digitized direction of the road might be incorrect. You can use this task and tools to flip the roadway and optionally flip the left and right side ranges. We provide a tool and a task that walks you through creating intersection points. And those intersection points will pull up the cross street information. And we see people use intersections in a lot of different workflows as well. Adding US national grid coordinates to your site addresses or other spatial reference information, latitude, longitude, et cetera, is sometimes required for different business systems. So we provide a tool here that allows you to automate and run your site addresses through a geoprocessing tool to write those coordinates to the feature. And the last thing I want to focus on in terms of using the solution is validating your address data. So what we're using to validate your address data is a set of validation rules that have been configured on the features delivered with the solution. So attribute rules come with several different flavors. There's calculation, which is a lot of what you saw today. When I construct a new feature and it updates attributes, I'm running calculation rules. There's constraint rules. Those are the rules that I configured to prevent you from entering a road that doesn't exist in the master road name table. And then there's validation rules. And these are rules that you can evaluate after you've done some editing to see if there are any issues introduced during that editing session. So using the error inspector here, I can evaluate the rules for my data. So I'm going to go ahead and click evaluate. And what it's going to do is it's running those rules against new features that I created or updated during that editing session. And what's nice about that is in the future, if I run them again, it will only run them against the features that have been modified since the rules were last run. So we can see a few errors and they've been symbolized on the map. So let me collapse this master road name table. And we can look at some of the errors that were generated. So if we select these two roads, that's Burning Tree Lane, we can see that it's saying that there's an address range overlap, two rules that failed. So what this is finding is coincident road name or coincident roads that have an overlap in their address ranges. If we look at Burning Tree Lane, we can see that the first segment runs from 501 to 641 on the right side, and then it picks up at 605 to 737. So there was an overlap in that right side range. It was an error I entered here. So this should actually be, rather than 641, 541. I can hit apply. This road also showed a invalid address range error. So if we look again at that Burning Tree Lane, it's being flagged because the left from and left to are the same number. It would also flag that if the left from was greater than the left to, for example. In this case, I'm going to update that to 500 and hit apply. It also found an error with this site address point. And what it's saying is the address doesn't match the road. And the issue is because it's saying that the full address number was 536, but this road previously had a left range of 540 to 540. So 536 didn't fall within the range of that road. Now that I've updated the range to be from 500 to 540, this will now fall within the range and it should be corrected. So if I go ahead and evaluate the rules again, the errors on the center line should be resolved and the errors in that site address should be resolved as well. And you can see that they're no longer symbolized as errors. There's a couple other errors that were found here that I want to highlight. This is saying that the address does not match the road. And the issue is because the road that it's associated with has a parity on the right side or on the east side of the road of being even So if we look at Northwest Street, even is on the right side, but this site address has a number that's odd. So this again was a data entry error. So I'm going to update that to 1114, and that should resolve it. And these two site addresses are being flagged because they're duplicates, and you can see they have the same address number. In addition, these site addresses that I placed here, some of them are also being flagged as duplicates because I didn't give them a unique alternate unit or type and number. They don't have a unique full address. So that's some examples of some of the rules that we include in the solution. With any of these rules, you can always mark things as an exception. And when you mark a attribute rule or a validation error as an exception, that's stored with the database. And in the future, that won't be flagged as an error anymore. And you have a history of all of those exceptions in your database. So it's nice, for example, we know that a lot of times we inherit addresses and they don't meet the strict criteria of the rules that we'd like to have in place, but we can't just change them. So we mark them as exceptions, and we always have a history of that so that we can always refer to those exceptions that we do have in our data. So that's how to use the solution. The last set of tasks that I want to talk about is how you can configure the solution. And we walk you through now, once you've used the solution and you like the functionality and you want to implement it in your organization, we walk you through a set of tasks that help you review the schema that's associated with the layers that we provide. We include a data dictionary that you can refer to understand what are all the fields and domains that are included and what they're referring to. We have a task that walks you through defining the spatial reference of the schema database that we provide. You're going to want to, of course, project the feature classes that we provide into your local coordinate system. We help you configure the map and layers and attribute rules that we provide. So much of the functionality that I showed you, all of it comes out of the box, but many people need to extend, add additional calculation rules or validation rules to really meet your unique needs. And we walk you through and provide you links to some of the documentation that describes how you can do that. Your next step would be to load your data into the feature classes provided in the file geodatabase. So you're using that schema database that's been projected, you're loading your data in, and you can start to take advantage of the solution. We also know that many organizations are likely going to want to move those feature classes into their ArcGIS Enterprise. And we walk you through how you can leverage ArcGIS Enterprise to manage your address information. One of the key differences with this new version of address data management is because we're taking advantage of the new validation rules. To leverage those rules in an enterprise environment, you need to use batch versioning, and to edit batch versioned feature classes, you're going to have to use hosted features, or sorry, feature services when you publish them. So you're going to have to publish your feature classes as a feature service, and then you're going to consume that back in your Arcgis Pro project. So I think I misspoke when I said batch versioning. I meant branch versioning. So there's traditional versioning, and the new pattern for versioning is branch versioning. And that's what you're going to need to take advantage of to use the validation rules that are delivered in the new address data management solution. This is similar to the direction that we're going with some of our utility network services, as well as our parcel services as well, our parcel management services as well. So this may be new to you and using this, but in my experience, it works very well. When you consume it back inside of ArcGIS Pro, the editing experience feels like you're just editing local data. You just happen to be working against feature services. And we provide you a publishing map that walks you through how you can publish your feature classes as that branch versioned feature service, and then consume it back in your editing map to do all your editing. The last point I want to leave with that is by adopting this feature service model and this web first model, you're setting yourself up in the future to take advantage of editing this information across different clients. So you're no longer restricted to just editing in the desktop in ArcGIS Pro. we're looking forward to a future where we can start to use web clients to edit and manage this address information, as well as mobile clients as well. And so I think this is a good step forward into setting ourselves up in the future to be able to support editing and maintaining our address information across all of these clients in our platform. So with that, I want to stop there and take any questions that may have come up so far.
Chris, we had a ton, so
Cool.
we could spend, but let's maybe I'll just try to summarize them. And if I missed your specific question, don't hesitate to connect with us after, or we'll try to hit it. Let's kind of work from where you ended the workflows back. Let's start with the validation rules and some of the data reviewer checks.
Yep.
You showed how they work on a subset of data. Can they be applied against my entire data set? So in other words, if different municipalities are doing the address data management, but I want to check my county to ensure that there's rules that are implemented. Just talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so by default, you can specify whether you want to run them against the visible extent or the full extent of the data. So you could definitely change that when you evaluate it. Like I said, the way it works is it writes a value to a field in the feature class that determines whether it's essentially dirty or needs to be checked. And that happens when you edit the feature or you create a new feature. As soon as you evaluate the rules and the feature passes, those features won't be evaluated again until there's an edit made or they're marked as dirty. So you can run it against your entire data set, or you can run it against the visible extent.
Okay. There was several questions about the master road name table and kind of how that interacts with the features, right? It's a standalone table that has the unique road name elements in it. Just spend a minute talking about, how that table governs the edits in the roads and site addresses, and also how you might handle a situation where I have Main Street's only valid in Lisle, but it's not valid in Naperville, or it's valid in Naperville and Lisle, and I want to make sure that they only can be used in those two communities.
Yeah, so the master road name table has a field for municipality. And so every municipality that full road name is valid for needs to have an entry in the table. So if Main Street is valid for Naperville and Lisle, I would have to have a unique row for Main Street, both for Lisle and Naperville. And when I evaluate, it compares not only the municipality that the site address falls within, the attribute on that municipality, in addition to the full road name, and both of those need to exist. So that's how it ensures that I'm creating a site address against a road that exists or is defined within my master road name table.
Okay. And a couple of people asked early on, can I use my roads center lines to build that master street name table? I might have master road names from parcel data. You can use any of those sources, and you can actually then use the master street name table to clean up diverse data sets, right? So my site addresses may have came from parcels, and my roads may have came from my 911 system. But the important thing about that master street name table is it is the source of truth for official road names in your community. That's the real important thing there.
Yep.
Chris, you also showed how you can create intersections, how roads are connected together to check address ranges if they overlap. Do I need topology to do that? Or how do those tools work? And, do features need to be snapped together and in a topology? Maybe just comment on that.
Yeah, so we do provide a topology. Primarily what we've configured the topology to check for is that roads don't self-intersect themselves and that they don't overlap without being split. It also checks to see that they don't overlap municipal boundaries without being split at those boundaries. So we do use a topology to do that. And you can use the same error inspector that I was using to validate the validation rules to find issues in your topology. But there are scenarios where you don't necessarily roads don't have to be coincident. There's lots of times where a county road might hit, or a road might hit a county road and then continue several feet down the road. In those scenarios, you can still find overlaps in ranges and attribute ranges without them being snapped together, for example.
Okay, that's good. And maybe just for the sake of time, one more question, then we'll move on to the rest of your demonstration. Mm-hmm. You showed kind of a single a scenario where it's a single municipality or a county that may be managing their address repository. Could this be set up in a distributed model where maybe a county and city are working together, or all the cities are actually editing against a county-wide data set? Talk about that maybe for a minute.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great question. Something I'm really eager to see more communities take up, but I think that's ultimately what the enterprise and branch version feature service kind of sets you up for, where I could have one representation of a countywide data set, and then I could have other municipalities contributing to that data set through feature services that I publish just for them. So I put a definition query or a filter on the service and restrict them to only be able to edit and create addresses within their given municipality. And they're editing against the same underlying feature classes in my enterprise database, but they're editing through a feature service that's been shared through them using the portal sharing framework. And so I think that pattern is definitely supportable and something that I think makes it really unique when leveraging enterprise in that branch version feature service model.
And we've had some communities do that even with previous generations of the solution. And like Chris said, it's getting easier and easier with the technology. So I'll try to answer a few more of these questions kind of offline while you're finishing up the demonstration. And then we'll just wrap and see if there's anything else that comes in. So go ahead.
Great. All right, so in regards to some of the other information products that we provide, one of the key components is this addressing ArcGIS hub site. And this can be your public destination for external or internal stakeholders to learn about addressing in the community, what your responsibilities are, how they can report issues that they discover, or just learn more about how the process works. So this hub site, one of the primary info products that we deliver from this hub site is a way to verify an address. And we hear from a lot of communities where issues are being reported to them, or there's concerns, or they're using different business systems and finding errors in the addresses. And this is a really simple web application that allows me to type in an address, and I get some autocomplete, and I can zoom to that address, see its location on the map, and also get an information pop up with any related mailing addresses that are associated with it. If I were, for example, to enter an address, and let's say it doesn't come up, I would get a message that there's no address found. This would inform me that maybe that address is missing from the repository, and I might want to submit a issue or a request for a new address. So if I scroll down here, we talk about, this could link out to some information that you have in your own website about how addressing assignment works, what are some of the rules associated with it. And then we have an address request form. And this is a configuration of Survey 123 that allows me to do a couple things. We have a couple different request types. I can request a new address. So if I'm a property owner or a contractor and I need to request a new address, I could provide that information and submit it to the addressing authority. I could also report an address discrepancy. So if I search for an address and I found an issue, either with the address itself or potentially even the mailing addresses, I could provide that details. And then the organization would have that information and they could review it, triage it, and determine whether to take action. We also provide an address assignments workforce project. And this allows me, if I'm going to be managing field crews and I want to, for example, respond to some of those discrepancies or other issues that have been reported, I'll see those reported here. So in this case, before the demo, I reported an address discrepancy and updated that the owner name on the mailing address needs to be updated. So this might not trigger a field workflow, but maybe it triggers a back office workflow to review that. In some cases, I might want to dispatch field staff to go out and actually collect new addresses in the field. And so with this assignment, I can assign it to myself or a field worker to go out and review. And then on their mobile device, they would have their access to their list of to do. They can go out and start that assignment. And then using the address field maps configuration, they can go out and collect or review proposed site address information. So if I was dispatched out into the field to collect new addresses or verify new addresses in the field, I could zoom around, poke on the site address, update the address information, mark it as verified, and update it. And now I've field verified those address points, and I can use that information back in the office to continue to improve the accuracy and the integrity of my address information. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Scott, see if we have some more time for questions and final wrap up.
Oops. Okay, Chris, let me just share my screen, wrap up, and then we can take a few last questions. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see my screen okay. Can you see it okay, Chris?
I'm not seeing it yet.
Uh-oh. Let me stop share and reshare. Okay. Share. Is that better?
Good now.
Okay. All right. So thanks everyone for all the great questions. And Chris, thanks for the great demonstration. Hopefully you can see how the address data management solution helps you streamline those unique address data management workflows and develop that address repository. We talked about how you can continuously improve this data through address requests and even go out in the field and conduct field inspections. And ultimately, our goal is really to help you build that authoritative repository and then continuously improve it over time for your unique needs. So that was really what we wanted to cover today in the demonstration of the solution. And as we mentioned early in the meetup today, this is really an evolution of our previous address data management solution, and really goes back to a lot of the same workflows we've had and you've evaluated and given us feedback on, even back to the old ArcMap days. So it's several generations old and incorporates a lot of those key guidelines and address capabilities that we've all talked about here domestically. We really appreciate all the questions. We can try to take a few more here in the minutes we have left. There's a couple things I want to just call to your attention. We really do enjoy the feedback you give us throughout these meetups. And if you don't mind, take a few minutes to fill out the survey we have. Let us know how you enjoyed or what we didn't get to in this meetup, where we might be able to improve them in the future. That feedback allows us to continuously evolve how we deliver this content to you. And the other thing I'll mention, I think Matt's going to share a link, is that this week we just released our 2022 Arcgis Solutions Roadmap. And that roadmap really highlights what we're working on in the near term over the next 4 to 6 months, midterm, second half of this year, and new solution ideas we have that we'll be getting to late this year and early next year. So I'd encourage you to kind of take a look at that blog post. If you see solutions on that roadmap that you're interested in working on with us, we'd love to hear from you, because it is that partnership with the user community that helps us drive the requirements and really ensures that what we deliver in the solution meets the needs of your organization. And so please do take the time to look at that and connect with us if you are interested in working on a solution with us. So maybe in just the few minutes we have left, Chris, we can just take some of the questions that we have outstanding. Sound good? Uh-oh, hopefully we didn't lose Chris. Oh, well, I'll try to wing it if I can.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
It did crash on me though, so I don't have the questions.
Okay,
Unfortunately,
I got 'em.
but yeah.
I'll MC for you. This is
all right.
It's a turn about several years ago. My machine crashed and Chris had to bail me out. So this is my turn, Chris, to pay you back or pay it forward, however that goes. Okay, so we had a question about kind of the parent-child lineage, or actually primary foreign keys is a better way to say it. Talk a little bit about how the IDs that are assigned to each of the features relate to each other. So, when I create a new site address, how are mailing address related, entrance points and things like that?
Yep. So yeah, the site addresses, the postal addresses, the address points, center lines all get unique IDs. The site address is related to the address point via an ID. And then there's a one-to-many relationship between the site address and the postal addresses, and the site addresses and the mailing addresses. And the address point to site address is really a one-to-one relationship between those things. There's actually no inherent relationship between the road center line and the site addresses. We're inferring the relationship based on the road name and the address range of the road and the address number of the site address.
Yep, perfect. Got another question from a familiar face. Many of the smaller cities and towns in our county actually share address information in a text document, in a PDF. Maybe it's part of the permit that was applied or an address request form that they've got in PDF. Have you heard of anyone working on ways to use machine learning or maybe AI to convert that into features? I don't know if some of the work I know our machine learning and AI team has been doing might be applied there, but that's some interesting ideas for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't had somebody specifically request that, but that certainly makes a lot of sense. And especially if it's coming in a very common form from the municipality, it'd be pretty easy, I would think, to train a model to pull that information out. I think maybe getting the spatial location might be the most challenging part of that.
You might have to throw it through a geocoder or something, then, right? To at least get close. Yep.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something to look at, Allison, is look at some of those machine learning libraries that our team's been Esri's been working on, and see if you can pick up some of the text to feature work they've been doing to do that. Let me just see if we've got anything else in the chat, Chris. We did several questions about, is it recorded? Yep, this meetup is recorded, and it will be available on the YouTube channel, like Matt mentioned. How do we join the testing of short-term solutions? So we can maybe connect offline with us and we can talk a little bit about what that partnership looks like. We work with communities to design and develop initial solution offerings. And then you can always provide feedback on existing solutions through support, through GeoNet or the Esri community, through Arcgis ideas, or just connect directly with us. The other thing, Chris, we had a question, I think a couple of people asked this. When you drew the new street in, can you compute the ranges based on the length? So if I have a rule that says that there's a new address every 5 feet, let's say, could we use that to compute kind of if I put in the initial addresses, could I essentially create the 2 addresses?
Yeah, definitely. We include attribute rules on the road centerline feature class to do just that. The rule is called logical block addressing, and it's disabled by default, but you can enable it and you can edit the rule to provide your logic in terms of what is the distance for every unique address number. And just like Scott said, when you construct the new road and you provide the left from and right from numbers, the right to and left to will automatically be calculated for you.
Okay. I'll just give everyone maybe a minute or two. If you have any final questions you'd like us to answer today, we can. Chris, there was a question about the hub site. Is there a link? Do we have a try it live for that? I forget on the site.
It's not in our documentation, but I do have one, and I can share it out because we link to it from our hub initiative.
Okay.
So yeah, let me bring that up, or we can post it on the meetup afterwards.
Yep. The other thing I'd encourage you to do, quite frankly, is you can just quickly deploy the solution. You're going to get the hub site that Chris showed minus the sample data. So if you just even want to see it, you could go to the solution site now, browse to address data management, quickly deploy it, and you'll get the site. So a real quick way to evaluate it and start to configure it. Chris, I think you answered this, but maybe I'll just ask you again. When you talked about editing center lines, and you had that tool that would split roads based on boundaries, are you maybe I update the attributes on a road, am I reevaluating those boundary rules to make sure that they're still falling within the same, or maybe I reshape a road based on better imagery or something? Do the boundary rules fire to make sure that the right and left side municipality are still consistent? Yeah,
the boundary rules fire whenever there's a new road added or that road geometry is updated. So it will fire when if I reshape the road or change the geometry of the road.
Okay. All right. I think we got most of the questions, everyone. Thanks for all. Let's see. Let me just go down one more time. We'll talk about the meetup video. You can browse the gallery. I think that's it. Anyone have any final questions? I'll just give everyone kind of the 30 seconds or so we have left, chance to ask their last question. Okay, Well, I'll just wrap up and say thanks everyone for all the great feedback today and all the questions you had. If you have any additional questions as you start to dig into the solution, don't hesitate to connect with your Esri account team. You can always connect with us directly, as I mentioned, through the Esri community, or hit any one of us up individually. Thank you very much for your interest in the address data management solution and all the improvements Chris showed today. And Matt, if you want to just wrap it up and talk a little bit about what's next for the next meetup, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So as Scott mentioned, that concludes today's meetup. We know your time is valuable and we appreciate you joining us today. Next month, we'll be hosting a meetup to discuss the new lead service line inventory solution. So we're excited. We're going to bring some of our water utility folks into our meetup and they're going to present their new solution. So you can find more information about this meetup on our meetup group on meetup.com. We usually send information out and post that. That's already posted. You can go join and check that out. So thanks again for attending today and have a wonderful day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.